Hi, viewers. Today we've got a fantastic person on the show today, in name of Jaren Chris, who is the managing director of Polyglot Translation Services. For those authors who are out there seeking for one way or the other, wanted to translate their book from one language to another, from English to, let's say, quite a lot of other languages, which is here to talk about. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining us today on English Literature. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah. So, Chris, could you tell us about your translation services? Could you tell us about, for those who haven't heard about Polyglot Translation Services yet, can you tell us briefly what your translation company is all about? Maybe a little bit of some background. That would be great.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
I'm Chris, like you mentioned, or Jarens, usually called Jarens or JC, from Polyglot Translation Services, a language provider or language services company based in Africa. We help individual or businesses speak the language of their customers because we believe that language is the first point of communication between people. And for you to reach your customers, you have to speak in their language. That's where we help authors in particular to speak the language of the customers to increase revenue and share their ideas. Basically, that's what PTS is about.
Well, that's great. That's quite amazing. Now, I also want to ask, what languages do you translate to? And do you have maybe teams of professionals that work with you?
In terms of languages, we translate in over 35 languages. Wow. We do translation into French, Spanish, German, Italian, Chinese, Japanese, including African languages, Yoruba, Ghanaian languages like Twi, Fanti, and so on. In terms of professionals, we have a team of professionals that work with us that helps us achieve better quality work or better quality translation for our authors or for other businesses we serve.
That's quite great. I love the sound of that. Now, I also want to ask, because most of the people, or most of the authors we have on English literature, great percentage of them are self-published authors, And, if a self-published author is to work with you, now after translation, take for instance, I come with a copy of my book, Fate to the Dungeon of Doom, and I said, okay, I want to translate with Polyglot Translation Services. After it's been translated to, let's say, for instance, Spanish or French, do you have marketing plans for authors to translate to? Will I be the one to go ahead marketing the book, even though it's in a different language aside from the English that I speak?
Thank you very much for the question. With regards to marketing, for translated books, at the moment we don't have direct marketing efforts, but with our partners, we have a couple of partners or radio shows we have where an author who has translated their books with us can be part of the show. Let's say the Black Book Show, for example. If an author has come through us and then they're interested in showcasing their book throughout the world, we can actually book them on the show on our cost. So the translation work will pay for appearing on those radio shows. Okay. And for children's book, we do marketing like LinkedIn marketing for children's book at the moment. If after your book has been translated through us, we can help you market your book through LinkedIn posts or LinkedIn ads.
That's quite great. And also see that, authors can maybe do a little bit of trying to reach out to book bloggers like me in the translated languages. Take, for instance, in Spanish, because I remember reading a book which was translated from Sweden language to English. So the author was like, oh yeah, Peter, would you love to read my book? I would love to have your opinion about the English version. And she was like, you're the first person who is reading this English version. I was like, oh wow, I never even knew it's a translated work because the language was very clear. I think I only spotted 3 errors while I read the whole book, and it's very voluminous. I was like, the translators did a very great job, word for word, trying to build up English language out of Sweden. So it's quite a great work. And thanks for adding that. Now, Chris, would you be comfortable to discuss maybe your payment plans?
Yes, we are open to discuss payment plan. I don't know if with regards to payment plan, so we are giving a flexible payments plan, especially for authors. Indie authors, we have up to 5 months payment plan for authors in such a way that their books are being translated and the finances too are not having the pressure, are not having so much pressure. With partnership we are building, we make sure to help authors translate their books. At the same time, pay as we go, as the project goes along, so that it doesn't frustrate their finance, it doesn't put so much pressure on their finance. So the payment plan we have is up to 5 months, going from 2 months up to 5 months, depending on the pressure or depending on the author's situation or author's capability, financial capacities.
Oh, that's great. And do you work on specific genres, or you're open to translating works different? Just take, for instance, you know, writing poetry, and somebody else wrote a memoir, another person wrote a crime thriller, someone else wrote a fantasy. Do you translate with every genre, or you're specific?
Yeah, we do. Thank you for the question. We do a translation of a lot of genres, Christian literature, historic literature, poetry, novels. I myself am an author. I've written nonfiction, and the book is being translated very soon. So we do translation of a lot of genres.
Oh, that's great. Now, there's a question I have that might want to look a bit different from this said conversation. As authors, or let's say most indie authors, often wait until they are well known before working on having their books translated into other languages. I just want to have your own bit of advice, or what you would love to propose. At what point in time do you think it is best to have one's work translated? Would you advise translation for a new author who's even currently struggling for recognition in his original language?
Yeah. So as an author myself, there are two things I think that motivates the author. First is just sharing, expressing yourself. The second is having a vision of where those thoughts, those ideas you put down would be. So most authors usually do well with expressing themselves, expressing their ideas. But the second thing I think authors should be able to do is have a vision of where the book has to be in the future. I'm an author. When I started writing my book, I had the idea or the thoughts to write down. At the same time, I had a vision for where my book, from where I want my book to be. So I believe as an author, you don't just have to have ideas you're putting down. You should have a vision of where you want to take your book as well. Absolutely. Because the moment you are starting to write, you are writing ideas you might think that are just good for your locality, for people around you, forgetting that there are people in other countries, other places that speak different language that can actually benefit of your book.
Absolutely.
So from the onset, you should already have a vision. My book, who is it targeting? If your book is targeting, let's say, pregnant women, there are pregnant women who speak French as well. So you should be thinking about those pregnant women. How are they going to reach? How are they going to read your book? That's exactly what I did for my book. The moment I was writing my book in English, there were sometimes even some French words. When the publisher read the book, he was confused, like, wow, your book, like, you are already going for the French market. And I told him, truth of the matter, I know my book will sell everywhere. I know my book is for the French, Spanish, so I've already had that in mind. Though I'm expressing ideas, though the idea is for for a particular audience in the Anglophone market, I know in the Francophone market, there is that particular audience also waiting for my book. So my advice for an author who is writing a book is actually to have in mind the vision for where you want your book to be. And I believe most authors want their books to be everywhere in the world, not just not just in the corner of your room. So when you have that in mind, even when you are writing, you have an idea of those in India, how are they going to read your book? Last time when I contacted the Indian publisher, I was surprised there were certain words in my book that would not fit well in the Indian market. So we had a conversation. How do we make it? How do we make the book available in Indian? How do we call it in Hindi? And that's something I was doing even while I was writing. When I completed writing, the book has not even been published. But I know I want my book to be in India. I want my book to be in French. I want my book to be in Spanish, and I want my book to be in English as well. So that vision should always be at the beginning of you writing the book, because knowledge is everywhere. The knowledge you have will be used by people all over the world, and people are actually waiting for your ideas.
Absolutely. I love your take on this. And, you know, I think it's high time myself would love to work on translating my book, A Cry for Mercy, to a different language aside English. You know, because my team of works are centered on humanity. You know, more just like in A Cry for Mercy, it's more like a book of lamentation, a book of pain, stuff like that. And, you know, we human beings generally undergoes pain. Pain is not only meant for the English speakers or meant for the Chinese. So what an English, what an English reader will read and say, oh wow, this is some deep words there. A Spanish man will also read and say, oh wow, that's some deep thing. It resonates with my life, you know, stuff like that. So I can see one of the great importance of having one's work translated into a different language aside one's original language. And it's quite very great. I would really love to have my books translated. And like you said, it depends on the author's vision. You having a great vision that I want to be one of those greatest authors who have their language translated into over 56 languages, 60 languages, etc. Like the likes of Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, which I happen to have just a single copy of.
Exactly.
This is the English version. This is the French version of Mr. Mercedes, Stephen King's. I never knew it was French. I opened it to read it, and I saw that it was in French. I was like, oh my God, I do not understand French. I can hardly read what is written here. So these guys have gone way forward to try to reach out to other people aside English and stuff like that. So I can see one of the great importance of having one's work translated into different language. And at this point, I would love to ask you, Chris, for authors who are interested in having their works translated, how can they contact you?
So for contact, they can just reach out through our website, which is polyglotTranslationServices.com, 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 or the email address info@polyglotTranslationServices.com.
Oh, that's great. And from there, they can take it up, right? Because I'm going to include a link to your website in the description part of this conversation, just so random person who just stumbled across it and wanting their works to be translated into a different language aside English can reach out to you directly. So for people, for authors who are interested in having their works translated, I left a link in the description part of this conversation to Polyglot Translating Services website and also their email address, where you can email and make some more inquiry for coming on the show. So is there anything you would love to mention about Polyglot Translation Services, Chris, that we did not mention at this interview and you just felt you want the viewers to know, you want people out there to know? Any other additional information from you?
Not so much at the moment, just that we are here to serve authors. I know for myself, we understand the benefits of translation, reaching a larger audience, getting more sales of your books, sharing your ideas with the world. Like you said, your wonderful book you've written, you understand that there are people in other countries who are going actually through the same thing.
Absolutely.
Would like some comfort, comfort. So being mindful of reaching those people. One of the books you just mentioned, Things Fall Apart, I did not know it was Nigerian, because when growing up, I think it was even a French book. It's sometimes ago when I got to know the book was actually originally written in English by a Nigerian, and the book has been translated in over 55 languages. Considered one of the greatest book of humanities in Africa. You can imagine, how do you call it, the opportunities it brings, even the shared the shared values.
And it's a lot of money, lot of revenue. The revenue is not only meant for English now, it's coming from different angles, you know.
Exactly.
So that's another advantage of translation. You get to earn more money in terms of revenue from people who are reading outside, people who read it in maybe Chinese, Spanish, French, and other languages, etc.
Exactly. So that's that advantage, or we shouldn't take it for granted as authors. We should do our best to go with translating literature works. At the same time, with regards to even selling your books online, translated books sell more than non-translated books. Because in terms of SEO, the moment your books are in 2 or 3 languages, let's say we have the same type of books. You've written a book about social sciences and a wonderful book in English. I've written a similar type of book about social sciences, and my book is in 5 languages. My book will appear more on Amazon and Google compared to your books, because my books are in different languages, and then it will show more in those places. So based on that, I'm actually making more money compared to you, which is something you did not wish for, but just based on how I've availed myself, how I'm serving other people there. My books will start selling more compared to your books. Even will start showing more compared to your books and on those websites, on those referencing websites.
Oh. Wow, that's quite great. That's quite impressive. Thank you so much for mentioning this part as well. At least, you know, it's helped to spice up the conversation and give a little bit of some significance attached to it. Thank you so much, Chris. So at this point, I would love to urge the authors watching this would love to have their works translated to reach out to Chris, which I've left a link in the description part of this conversation to their website, to their email address.
We have a discount for authors as well, ending on the 30th, I think 30th of May, for authors that are interested who are coming this particular month through P-English literature. We have discounts for books translation, including the payments plan we've mentioned. Amazing. So it's the best time to actually do it.
Amazing. And like people, yeah. As you've all heard, there's a discount for authors coming, you know.
Up to 500 USD, by the way. Discount.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great. Thank you so much for that. So for interested persons, you can reach out and Chris will be much more very available to receive you. We need authors. Come, we're going to translate your works and make it very amazing. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining us in this conversation today and for introducing us to your wholesome and amazing Polyglot Translation Services. I checked your website and I found it very amazing. It's well done and beautiful. I thought, oh, wow. I click on this link. I thought I should just go ahead and place an order right away. Go ahead. Right away.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Welcome. So thank you so much for coming and talking about Polyglot Translation Services. It's a pleasure having this conversation.
Thank you.